So, what actually makes a TV show the greatest of all time? Is it the writing?
There's no endings for a guy like me. High-profile guy. Dead or in a cave.
The performances? Cinematography? Is it the moments that break the internet?
My king has married, and I owe my new queen a wedding gift.
What the fuck?
Are you serious right now? What just happened?
Or the ones that stay with you long after the scene goes black? Some shows are remembered for their dialogue.
Hey, yo, lesson here, babe. You come at the king, you best not miss.
Some for their visuals. Some for their characters that feel larger than life. And a few are remembered because they've changed television forever. However, Mad Men has all of them. And yet, it still doesn't get talked about in the same way. Not because it isn't great, but because it never asked to be noticed. Before Mad Men became talked about as one of the greatest TV dramas ever, it began as a bold idea from a TV writer no one expected to become a showrunner. Matthew Weiner had spent years writing on shows like The Sopranos, but when he wrote what would become the Mad Men pilot, he wasn't trying to chase trends or do what everyone else was doing in prestige TV. He wanted something more layered, more reflective, and very specific. Weiner didn't just want a period piece, he wanted a realistic one. Not the romanticised, glossy version of the 1960s you see in the magazines, like the cluttered desks, full ashtrays, outdated furniture, and the world people really inhabited, not just the worlds they idealised.
And I grew up in a household of this period, but I think that the workplace and the business place, Bob Levinson, who's an advisor on the show, we used to be the head he was a research person at BBDO, and then he was the head of television at ICM. So when I finished, I was at ICM at the time when I finished the pilot, and I sent it in, and I got a call out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna pitch a client or something, but we don't know if the show's getting picked up. And he said, in 1960, I was on the Lucky Strike account at BBDO. Our office wasn't that nice yet, but do you have a time machine?
When Weiner pitched the show, people in the industry were skeptical. Networks passed. Executives didn't think anyone would watch a slow, character-driven drama about advertising. Even his own agents warned him not to take the project to AMC, a channel known for classic movies, not original TV storytelling. But AMC didn't want to turn it into something else. That's what Weiner needed.
They said that they were calling me from 3 different points in the universe because they were constantly going on vacation, even though we were about to shoot in 5 days. And they said they'd never done it before. They were very relaxed. I got to say, they showed up on the first day of shooting. They're like, "Wow, you really put it together." I'm like, "Yeah, we did." I had a great producer, but I appreciated that hands-off thing.
From the start, Weiner wasn't interested in showing a surface-level 1960s world. He wanted depth. In later interviews, he described the show's core questions as something universal. What is this? And what is wrong with me? The inner tension every person feels when they're confronting themselves. The result was a show that felt lived in, not idealized. A world where nothing was merely there for style. It was there because it mattered to the characters and the story. And that foundation of realism and unapologetic honesty.
Job. I give you money, you give me ideas.
And you never say thank you.
That's what the money is for.
Is what made Mad Men feel like something audiences weren't just watching, but entering. Mad Men never tries to impress you at first glance. It doesn't rely on sweeping camera movements, rapid cuts, or visual noise. Instead, it asks you to sit still. Every frame is intentional. Characters are often boxed in by door frames, windows, and negative spaces. Not by accident, but by design. Power in Mad Men isn't shown through action, it's shown through space. Who sits? Who stands? Who's centered? And who's pushing to the edge of the frame? Lighting is restrained, but precise. Offices are bright and exposed. Homes are darker, heavier, more claustrophobic. Work is where these characters perform, and home is where these performances collapse. The colour palette is muted. Blues, greys, soft pastels. Nothing stands out unless it's meant to, and despite being set in one of the most romanticised eras in history, Mad Men refuses nostalgia. This isn't the 1960s as we imagined it. It's the 1960s as it felt. Uncomfortable.
And therefore, as a free man,
Transitional.
crew now departing from their crew quarters.
Unresolved. Mad Men doesn't decorate the past, it examines it. Because when the show allows a moment to land, it stays with you. Not because it was loud, but because everything else was quiet. Mad Men existed during one of the most competitive eras in television history. This was the rise of prestige TV. Shows were getting darker, louder, and more shocking. Each season had to feel bigger than the last, but Mad Men didn't play that game. It didn't escalate, it didn't reinvent itself, it didn't chase relevancy. Instead, it trusted consistency, something television rarely rewards. And yet, while everything around it changed, Mad Men dominated.
And the Emmy goes to...
And the Emmy goes to...
And the Emmy goes to...
Mad Men!
Mad Men.
Mad Men.
Mad Men won the Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series, and then won it again, and again, and again. 4 consecutive years, not because it shocked audiences, but because it never lost control of what it was. Most shows evolve to survive. Mad Men survived by refusing to evolve at all. It didn't adjust its tone. It didn't rewrite its characters to be more likable. It didn't speed itself up to keep attention. The industry caught up to the show, not the other way around. That kind of dominance is rare, and it's almost impossible to sustain. And somehow, at the centre of all of this, Jon Hamm didn't win. Year after year, the performance that defined the show went unrewarded, not because it wasn't recognised, but because it was too quiet, too restrained, too eternal. Don Draper wasn't loud enough to demand attention until the final season.
And the Emmy goes to Jon Hamm, Mad Men.
This wasn't a reward for one episode. It was a recognition of a performance that never changed, in a television landscape that consistently does. At the centre of Mad Men's dominance wasn't a spectacle. It was a man who stayed exactly the same. Most great television characters transform. They start as one thing and end as another. They learn.
Motherfucker.
They adapt. They become better or worse. Don Draper doesn't. From the first episode to the last, Don remains the same. Skilled, admired, deeply empty. He's not on a journey towards redemption. He's running in place. Every season offers him a chance to confront who he is. And every time, he chooses avoidance. Don doesn't evolve. He resets. A new office, a new woman, a new identity. But the patterns never change. That's what makes Don Draper so unsettling. Mad Men refuses to reward him with growth. There's no dramatic reckoning. No moment of clarity that fixes everything. Because that's not how people work. Don is a man who understands stories better than anyone, and still can't tell himself the truth. He knows how to sell happiness.
To a place where we know we are loved.
He just doesn't know how to feel it. And the brilliance of Mad Men is that it never mistakes charm for progress. Don succeeds professionally. He fails personally. Over and over again. And by refusing to change him, the show forces you to sit with a harder question. What if self-awareness isn't enough? While Mad Men is often remembered through the figure of Donald Draper, the series' real strength lies in the world built around him. This is not a show powered by one performance alone, but by an ensemble that feels alive, flawed, and deeply human. At the centre of this supporting cast is Peggy Olson. Introduced as a timid secretary on her first day at Sterling Cooper, Peggy's journey becomes one of the most compelling transformations in modern television. As the advertising industry evolves, so does she, pushing against the limitations placed on women in the workplace.
Well, you're in the city now. Wouldn't be a sin for us to see your legs. If you pull your waist in a little bit, you might look like a woman.
Often at a great personal cost. Elizabeth Moss brings a quiet intensity to this role, allowing Peggy's ambition, insecurity, and resilience to unfold gradually, mirroring the slow cultural shift of the 1960s itself. Alongside Peggy stands Joan Holloway. Initially framed through the male gaze, Joan appears to embody the traditional expectations of femininity within the office. But Mad Men constantly challenges this perception. Over time, Joan reveals herself as one of the most strategically intelligent figures in the series, navigating power, sexuality, and surviving in the system designed to exploit her. Christina Hendricks' performance ensures Joan is never reduced to an archetype, instead becoming a reflection of the compromises women were forced to make in order to gain control. Then there's Pete Campbell. Ambitious, entitled, and often deeply uncomfortable to watch. Pete represents the darker side of the American dream. He is a character driven not by talent, but by expectation. A man who believes success is owed to him. Yet across the series, Pete slowly evolves, revealing moments of self-awareness that complicate his moral failures. Vincent Cathizer's portrayal makes Pete one of Mad Men's most diverse characters, but also one of its most honest. The ensemble extends far beyond these figures. Roger Sterling's charm masks a growing irrelevance in a changing world. Betty Draper embodies the quiet despair beneath suburban perfection. Characters like Lane Price and Megan Draper reflect displacement, reinvention, and the fragility of identity in an era defined by transition. What makes Mad Men exceptional is that none of these characters exist in isolation. Their stories interact, collide, unravel together, reflecting broader cultural shifts in gender, class, power, and ambition. The Office becomes a microscope of 1960s America, where progress is uneven and success often comes at a moral cost. In giving its supporting cast depth and narrative weight, Mad Men elevates itself beyond a character study. It becomes a mediation of identity itself, how it's shaped, performed, and sold.
Buy the world a home and furnish it with love.
Advertising is not just the setting of Mad Men. It's its philosophy. Each pitch reveals a deeper truth. Not about the product, but about the person selling it. In Mad Men, advertising becomes a mirror, reflecting desire, fear, nostalgia, and identity back at both the character and the audience. Don Draper understands this instinctively. He doesn't sell objects, he sells feelings.
Advertising is based on one thing: happiness.
Again and again, Don's pitches tap into collective longing, the need to believe that meaning can be packaged and purchased. But Mad Men never lets these moments stand as victories. Each successful campaign is undercut by Don's personal reality, exposing the cost of selling illusions you cannot live up to yourself. The show's most iconic moments work because they blur sincerity and manipulation. The Kodak carousel pitch, it doesn't just sell nostalgia, it exposes it. Memory becomes both comfort and escape, a way of avoiding the present rather than confronting it. And Don, for all his insight, remains emotionally distant from the very feelings he understands so well. As the 1960s progress, the industry changes. Youth culture, rebellion, and uncertainty begins to erode in the clear confidence advertising once relied on. Mad Men tracks this shift with precision, showing how the industry doesn't lead cultural change. It absorbs it, reshapes it, and sells it back. Those who fail to adapt are left behind. Those who succeed do so by reshaping themselves, compromising authenticity in order to remain relevant. Advertising becomes an exercise of reinvention, mirroring Don's own life. Because Donald Draper is not just selling identity, he's performing it. Don reinvents himself through trauma, opportunity, and deception. His success embodies a deeply American belief that you can escape your past if you sell the right version of yourself. But reinvention has a cost: distance, isolation, and emotional paralysis. Don sells happiness while remaining profoundly unhappy. He understands human longing better than anyone, yet cannot fulfill it himself. And in doing so, he becomes the embodiment of the American lie, the idea that success equals fulfillment. Mad Men doesn't glamorize this, it exposes the emptiness behind the image. Don's affairs, ambition, and emotional withdrawal are not symbols of freedom, but avoidance. He keeps moving forward because standing still would force him to confront who he really is. And that's the show's greatest insight: identity. In Mad Men, it is not fixed, it is constructed. But when you build yourself an illusion, the question becomes inevitable. What happens when you no longer believe the story you're telling? More than a decade after it ended, Mad Men still feels unmatched. Not because television hasn't improved, but because very few shows attempted to do what Mad Men dared to do. In an era increasingly driven by shock, spectacle, and speed, Mad Men trusted patience. It didn't chase likability. Characters were allowed to be contradictory, selfish, and uncomfortable. Growth wasn't guaranteed. Consequences were not always clean. Mad Men respected its audience enough to let ambiguity stand. It treated television like literature. Symbolism repeated quietly. Moments echoed across seasons. The show rewarded attention, not reaction. And perhaps most importantly, Mad Men never told the audience what to feel. It observed. It presented a world shaped by power, capitalism, and identity, and trusted the viewer to sit with discomfort. There were no long speeches explaining the point, no moral conclusions wrapped in the certainty, just reflection. So, what makes a television show the greatest of all time? The answer was always there. Mad Men. Not because of its iconic moments or awards, though it has both, but because it treats television as an observation, not spectacle. Across 7 seasons, Mad Men trusted patience. Characters change slowly. Culture shifts unevenly. Meaning emerges without explanation. In doing so, it respects its audience and elevates the medium. It tells a story about advertising without selling itself, about power without glorifying it, about masculinity without celebrating it, about reinvention without endorsing it. And in Donald Draper, it creates neither a hero nor a villain, but a mirror, a man shaped by the same forces as the world around him. Mad Men doesn't ask to be loved. It asks to be understood. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't comfort the viewers. It simply reflects. Years after its final episode, Mad Men remains unmatched and still defies what great television can be. So if you really want to understand why it stands above the rest, don't just watch it.